Hey, welcome to Upon Further Review, presented by Coors Light. I'm your host, Paul Gutierrez. Joining me here from Studio PG, I guess we'll call it, doing a little remote shot here today. But we are now entering week 2 of the Raiders coach search ever since Pete Carroll was relieved of his duties. And we know exactly a lot of names that have been reported out there, some names that the Raiders are reportedly interested in interviewing as well. For me, on a personal level here, this is interesting because since I've been covering this team since 2005, for a number of different media entities, from the Sacramento Bee to CSN Bay Area to ESPN to now at Raiders.com. Since 2005, this will be my 14th different head coach that the Raiders will be with. And each time it seems a little bit different in terms of what exactly the Raiders are looking for. The goal obviously is always going to be the same, to just win, baby. I guess I could say that, and go from there. So as we go forward here, there's going to be a lot of names, a lot of reports, a lot of things out there. So the best way you can stay up to date here, you can sign up for exclusive updates on the head coaching search by scanning the QR code right here, or you can visit raiders.com/text. All right, joining me now to help break down all this madness and all these rumors and reports and everything that's out there regarding the Raiders' latest coaching search, Vince Sapienza, my guy from not only Fox 5, but in the building too sometimes with Raider Nation Radio. Vince, thanks so much. And I know since the Raiders have moved here, this may seem like a lot of coaching searches for you since 2021. This is going to be their 6th different coach, counting interims, since 21. I covered this team since 2005. This is going to be number 14 for me. So real quick, knee-jerk reaction. Ever since the Raiders relieved Pete Carroll of head coaching duties, what has kind of wrapped your mind? What have you been thinking about this whole situation?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of the normalcy right now, especially here in Las Vegas. And it really didn't hit home until Mike Tomlin steps down in Pittsburgh, and you see that the Pittsburgh Steelers are on their 4th head coach, or searching for their 4th head coach since 1969, that you really put into perspective what the Raiders have had to go through in terms of trying to get this thing right. And I think, we can make a big deal, and I know a lot has been made about the number, the coaching carousel that just is Las Vegas currently right now. But I think the bigger point is the Raiders are still just trying to get it right. And this is an inexact science. This is a difficult, monumental task for an iconic brand that, ownership at the top, starting with Mark Davis, they're willing to do anything and everything to get it right. And if that means having to go through this again, which again, as I said, is back to a little bit of normalcy here in Vegas, he's going to do that. And so it's one of those things, you have to respect it. You may not like it as fans and as somebody who reports on the team and the players and things like that. Obviously you don't like it, but with the end goal being to get it right, it's the necessary evil at this point.
It's also interesting in this whole thing, Vince, is when the announcement came out and the statement came out from Raiders owner Mark Davis. He basically said that the general manager John Spytek will lead all football operations in close collaboration with Tom Brady. In previous searches, it was always kind of understood, at least when John Gruden was here, that he had the 51%, the final say in roster decisions, things like that. This seems a little bit different in terms of where they want to go here. It seems the GM and Tom Brady, as the footballs are, they're the ones that are going to do this. How does that then kind of change in your mind what the pool of candidates can be? You've got 9 teams in the NFL. More than a quarter of the NFL is looking for a new head coach at this point in time.
It's clear messaging, right? And it's something that I think this organization has been looking for a long time, that shared vision, right? And that shared vision starts at the top with Tom Brady and John Spytek. And so whoever comes in, and the Raiders have cast a vast net, which we'll get into, I think it's very clear messaging to whoever comes in. They know what they're getting. They know what's going to be at their feet, and they know what the ask is going to be. And I thought it was really important for John Spytek at that end of season presser to talk about, look, we don't want anybody coming in here promising anything. We understand what this is going to be, and that this is going to be, a tall mountain to climb right now, but we want whoever's going to do it to understand that this is what the messaging is at the top. We're gonna come up with the plan, and then whoever we bring in is going to have that shared message. That way, there's no question when it comes to training camp. Hey, we need to work this thing out between whether it's coach and coordinator, whether it's quarterback and coordinator. There is a defined messaging that is going on right now with the Raiders, starting at the baseline, the root,
Okay.
the foundation moving forward. And that is something that has not existed, to your point. It's always been kind of like understood, this guy's going to have say, Pete Carroll's going to have say, John Gruden's going to have say. Now it couldn't be any more clear. And I think if you start with clear transparency, you will get on the same page from the get-go.
And that to me is what's most important here, is getting on that same page, literally getting on the same page. And it has to be the right page. Otherwise, you could be on the same page and it could be the wrong page. And we've seen that a couple of times along the way as well. Let's get into the interview process here, the reports that are out there. I actually spoke to Raiders owner Mark Davis, and he told me that he had nothing to say at this time, and that he let the process kind of play out and see how it goes. Some of the candidates, let's list some of the names that are out there that have been reported by national outlets out there. They've reportedly already interviewed 6 people: Davis Webb, Vance Joseph, Matt Nagy, Kevin Stefanski, Klint Kubiak, Jeff Hafley. Of those names we just listed off, anybody grab your attention? Anybody kind of like say, "Ooh, okay, let me dig deeper into this guy"?
Well, PG, what's beautiful about this is I can find reasons why they all jump off the page to me.
Yeah.
But, Kevin Stefanski is a hard name to not start with. 2-time coach of the year. And for me, from where I sit, obviously I'm not in Berea or covering the Cleveland Browns, but you look at what he's been able to do with that roster and those personalities and ownership and some of the moves they've made from the front office that have been swings and misses, quite frankly, right? And you look at what he's been able to do, and I think he's been able to do a lot. And I think when you ask the question, what could he have done more? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is anything he could have done more. So he's a name that really jumps out to me in a big way. The other name that really jumps out to me after doing a lot of research, a lot of digging from my contacts in Denver that I have, is Davis Webb. This is a guy that is 30 years old, that has grabbed the attention of Sean Payton in a very short amount of time, which by all reports, getting the attention on the good side of Sean Payton is no easy task. Let's just say that. And so, I don't know if he's the next wonderkin. I don't know if he's the next Sean McVay or Liam Cohen, or pick any, young upstart, young offensive mind. But what jumps out to me at these reported, interview requests on the whole is just the wide variety of ice cream you get to choose from. Like, I love chocolate, PG. And I don't know if you're a Rocky Road guy, if you're a strawberry or rainbow sherbet, whatever but there is a lot of options here, and there's a lot of outlets that you can go. And to your point, more than a quarter of the league has head coaching vacancies. And, you can sit there and say, man, there's a lot of competition there for the Raiders. But I look at this Raiders job now, whether it's the cap space, the first overall pick, the location, management, Tom Brady in the building. There is a lot to like when you talk about attractiveness of a head coaching vacancy. I mean, it's hard not to make the Raiders at the top of your list. So when I look at those names, I think, man, there's going to be a lot of good options, and it's no longer just the Raiders pitching themselves. I think, for the first time, what feels like a while, these candidates are really pitching themselves to be part of the solution here in Las Vegas moving forward.
And I think a lot of that also, Vince, has to do with how attractive the job potentially could be, given that it's starting at the base level, like you said, and that you have the number 1 overall pick. Whether you want the quarterback or you don't, you have the power of attorney, so to speak, to kind of dictate the rest of the draft with that number 1 pick. And one of those names that you mentioned, Stefanski, I'm gonna quote your guy, Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, two-time coach of the year. So let's kind of dive into some of these guys. You mentioned Davis Webb. To me, he seems kind of more, and again, this is just me thinking outside the box here, more of like not necessarily a head coach right away, but maybe on that fast track as an OC for somebody that comes in and wants to kind of groom that quarterback if that's the way they want to go. And again, a lot of people are always asking me, well, what are they going to do at number 1? Who's the coach? Tell me who the coach is, and then we'll kind of see exactly which route they're going to go. So according to reports, Davis Webb interviewed on January 7th. Vance Joseph, they stayed in the division, interviewed on January 8th per ESPN. Matt Nagy per NFL Network, again, an offensive mind. Kevin Stefanski himself, what we just said, January 8th. They've been busy. Kubiak from Seattle, young offensive mind, that Shanahan kind of coaching tree going on there. Let's get back to Vance Joseph. He's interviewed here before, and he's been a head coach before. Living the time of his life, my guy on ESPN Espanol. So What about Vance Joseph kind of stands out to you in terms of what he's doing? He's in his third season as the Broncos defensive coordinator.
Well, there's no question that Vance Joseph is an elite defensive mind, right? And he has the experience in the fact that he was a head coach, right? And you know, we hear the term. It's so funny the words that get brought up in the lexicon in the NFL offseason about retreads and guys that have learned from their mistakes and things like that. And Vance Joseph in particular, albeit a short stint as a head coach, you talk about a guy who I've heard him in many interviews talk about he learned so much, not just what it means to be a head coach, but how differently you have to deal with people, right? And what you have to go through in order when you're the top dog, when you are the head guy, because you can't just be the fun defensive coordinator in the defensive room. Now you have to command, every single room that's in there. So Vance Joseph is an interesting name to me. I always wonder, and we're looking at Vance Joseph's coaching resume, extensive and without question, I think deserved of another opportunity to be a head coach in this league. He did some good things with the Arizona Cardinals when he left Denver, came back, and you see what they've been able to do over the past 2 years in terms of getting after the quarterback, attracting the right type of talent in the secondary, and getting the most out of, maybe one of the most unheralded linebacker groups in the entire National Football League. So a historical defense on many different respects from Vance Joseph. But what's interesting to me is I always wonder how much these requests, not that they're not valid by any stretch of the imagination, but fact-finding, right? Like, what does Vance Joseph, a second time around now, view of this job with the Raiders? Matt Nagy as offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Like, how does he view Las Vegas as somebody who's seen it firsthand many times and understands what he has to go up against, game plan, etc.? Again, not saying that they're not true head coaching candidates, but I do think that's a little bit part of it, because these are guys you study from afar as you're game planning week in and week out, and guys who are game planning you as well.
Sergio Dip, that was our guy's name.
That was the name. There it is.
Sergio Dip. There he is.
Legend. Living legend.
Living legend, Sergio. I still got to get his autograph whenever I see him. Another name that has a lot.
Autograph.
What's that?
What would you have Sergio Dip autograph?
A
microphone, or it has to be something very specific.
I still have a mic flag from ESPN from my days there. That might do the trick. Or the selfie. Everybody's got to do a selfie.
That's true.
Klint Kubiak, would you take a selfie with Klint Kubiak? Because again, this is a name that's real interesting, especially in the division with the rivalry with the Broncos. His dad was the backup quarterback. We know all those years for John Elway. His dad was a successful coach in his own right. Kubiak, what about that has Raider fans kind of chomping at the bit? Is it because he's that young offensive mind? And again, it kind of, you follow that yellow brick road, that silver and black brick road to try to find the quarterback. What jumps out about him to you?
Yeah, first things first. I don't know if Klint Kubiak would take a selfie with me. I think his demeanor is very much like his dad, and a little bit more reserved, a little more on the quiet end of things. Yeah, his name, I think, is a popular one, and rightfully so. I think on Derek Carr's podcast, he's a guy that he had in his top 3 in terms of names that he would want to see head coach for the Raiders. And I do think part of it is the offensive mind, what he was able to do a little bit with the New Orleans Saints in 2024. And then as what you're seeing him do with Sam Darnold in Seattle right now. I mean, he has them humming right now. I guess the questions you would want to know about Klint Kubiak is that demeanor, right? Like, is he ready to kind of take that step as the top dog, as the head coach? I think the creativity that we've seen, what he's been able to do with Jackson Smith and Jigba up in Seattle, you sit there and, well, maybe you don't have that exact same type player in Vegas. You can't help but think what he would do with a Brock Bowers, right? Klint Kubiak, whether it's from his dad, whether it's from his coaching tree, he loves running the ball. I mean, you salivate at the thought of what he could do with Ashton Genty, how he could reshape that offensive line and turn the worst running game in the NFL into not just league average, but one of the best. So I think those are the attributes that jump out immediately. Those are the questions, though, that you have to ask. Yes, he's been able to do and have success, albeit a short time in New Orleans, and again, albeit a short time in Seattle. Is he ready for this type head coaching job in this particular cycle? I think a lot of people in the NFL would say, yeah, he is ready for that opportunity. And it's one of those things, it goes back to that clear messaging from John Spytek. Like, this is not going to be an overnight thing, nor do they expect it to. If it happens, that's fantastic, right? Like that is best case scenario. But they understand that this is going, if it needs to be a slow build, let it be a slow build as long as the trajectory is up and to the right.
Yeah, and that's the important thing is, like you said at the top, and we both agreed on, this has to be where they're all on the same page. Not, well, I need to win now. Well, wait a minute, this is kind of a restocking process. Whatever it is, they have to both agree on this. And what's interesting about Kubiak and even Vance Joseph to a degree, to me, is that these are guys that yeah, Vance has been a head coach before, but he would understand the room, the role. He's not coming in demanding control. Klint Kubiak is a first-time head coach, would understand, hey, the GM is my boss, which Hugh Myers and I talked about this before, the upside down world of the NFL. How is a coach actually hiring his boss as the GM? I covered baseball for a long time, and the GM was always hiring the manager. Stefanski to me is real intriguing because this is a guy that he has the pelts, and I've used this for Pete Carroll, the same description. He's got the pelts on the wall. He knows what to do. There were some weird things that happened in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders and who the quarterback was going to be, and having all those quarterbacks in the room. But he brings something to the table too, in that he's done it. He knows how to do it, especially having been a two-time coach of the year. Regarding him, and also two appearances in the playoffs. Is he a defensive mind? Is he an offensive mind? Is he kind of the overall kind of game manager? Where do you see Stefanski kind of fitting into potentially this role that has been laid out exactly what it's going to be by Tom Brady and John Spytek?
I kind of look, again, Stefanski's would be at the top of my list personally. And again, I mentioned Derek Carr, who his picks on his podcast. Stefanski was his number one as well. And it's fascinating because he's a former defensive back when he was a player. He was a DB. And then as he gets into coaching, he becomes this offensive mind, whether it be with Minnesota as a coordinator, a quarterback's coach, from assistant to quarterback's coach to interim coordinator to coordinator, et cetera. Then he becomes the head coach of Cleveland. And as I said at the top, I thought he got as much out of that organization as he could, considering what went around him. Not even the Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel stuff. You go back to the front office going and getting Deshaun Watson, giving a lot of picks and money to this guy that didn't pan out for a number of reasons. We don't need to get into that. But you're right. 2 playoff appearances. How many other coaches have been able to say they got the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs twice in this century? It just simply hasn't happened. So when you talk about doing more with less, and while he may have, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I'm not even going to pretend to get into his mind, but from afar, what seemed like a messy situation at the top, whether it was front office or ownership kind of getting in the middle of things, what a breath of fresh air that would be for him here in Las Vegas, understanding, going back to your original point, clear messaging, transparency. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Just go out and coach. And for somebody who was able to create a lot with Minnesota on the offensive side of things, the other elephant in the room is that number 1 overall pick. And I'm not Nostradamus, but everything is pointing to that quarterback in Indiana, Fernando Mendoza. And what an opportunity to build something with a young quarterback and build it the right way, and knowing you have the time to do so. Yeah, this division is vaunted. There's a lot of talent in the division, no question about it. But Kevin Stefanski feels like a perfect fit. He's 43 years old. He's somebody you can grow this organization with. And for me, that would be my top candidate if I was putting together a list. But it's weird. I haven't gotten a call from Spy or TB12 just yet. Maybe I need to check my phone again. Nope, not yet.
Well, maybe because they have you listed wrong. They need to have you as Nostra Sapienza.
Ooh,
Nostra
I've been doing it wrong this whole time. Where were you on that one, PG?
Yeah, we got it. That's your burner, I'm sure. And let's close this out now with some more intriguing names. And again, you can never have enough names. People always want to talk about it. Some interviews that have been requested per numerous reports across the league. Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. He's a name that I had heard right off the top as a potential here. Rams pass game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase. Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula. That last name sounds awfully familiar as well. Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. I'm going to put a little flavor to that.
Look at you.
And the Chargers defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter. I've got a lot of Charger friends that are like, please stay away from our defensive coordinator, which to me, it's like, you tell me to stay away. I kind of want to go there now. Again, haven't talked to them yet, reportedly, but reportedly requested these interviews.
So you just kind of look at connections, right? You're looking at Jesse Minter. Obviously, you see him twice a year. You understand the type of defense that he was able to put together in his couple of years with Jim Harbaugh, Michigan men. You look at the whole Spytech, TB12. People might roll their eyes at that, but hey, there's connections everywhere in the NFL. But Michigan always feels a little different when you bring up Michigan men. So Jesse Minter, in that respect, obviously, you look at the Chargers and their playoff one and done. You can't say it was the fault of the Chargers defense, right? So you sit there, that's a feather in the cap for Jesse Minter. I think the other big names are the 3 Rams assistants. And when you talk about a model franchise to look after, to go after, to a coaching tree that you're like, man, they're really hitting. I don't know I don't know what's in the water over there in Inglewood, but I need to go check out what's happening at SoFi. It's no surprise that those 3 assistants are being talked about. And Chris Shula, the name, a little bit of legacy, a little bit tradition rich. Raiders know a little bit about legacy as well. That's an interesting fit as well, especially if you go with a defensive mind like Chris Shula. That Nathan Schillhouse obviously feels like he gets a bump. That feels like a nice tandem, right? A defensive-minded coach with an up-and-coming offensive mind that's a passing game coordinator gets elevated to an offensive coordinator. You pair him with the number 1 pick that is likely to be a quarterback for the Raiders. All of a sudden, you're cooking right now. If you're the silver and black, and you talk about excitement. That is a pairing. That is a tandem. That is something Raider Nation can really get behind. So the beauty of this, PG. And we've shown a bunch of names that have been reported to either have interviewed or have been requested to interview. By my count, based on the reports, the Raiders have put out the most requests out of any team of the 9, which tells me, 1, that there's a lot of talk from those agents saying, hey, Las Vegas is a place that I'd be very interested in. 2, there's a lot to like about the weaponry and the weaponry. I'm not talking about just the players currently on the roster. It goes back to the picks. It goes back to the salary cap. It goes back to the location, income, state tax, free state here in Nevada. I mean, brand new facilities that blow the socks off everybody. Former GM Tom Telesco sits there and says the facilities in Las Vegas are second to none. Pick a reason, PG, and the Raiders are a big reason why. But those Rams. That Rams trio of assistants and the 2 coordinators and the passing game coordinator really jump out as, all right, we're looking at building off of what we already know is a fantastic coaching tree, a fantastically run program in LA with the Rams in particular. And maybe we can bring a little bit of that here in Las Vegas.
So you said you didn't know what they have in the water in Inglewood, but I do know this from an old Tupac song and Dr. Dre, Inglewood, always up to no good. Nostra Pienza. I think that works better. Nostra Pienza.
That's pretty good. We got to get together on the spelling of that because people already have a tough time with my name. So that might be, but what are you going to do?
Fair enough. Well, hopefully you've broken it down for me and we figured out, and now you've kind of made your shot. You called your shot and we're going from there. So Vince, Nostra Pienza. Thank you so much for joining me on Upon Further Review.
PG, appreciate you.
Okay, so head coach tracker on Raiders.com. That's going to be your central hub for all news throughout the Raiders head coaching search, including updates following each interview, as well as details on the candidates. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of Upon Further Review. Thanks to our guest, Vince Sapienza. To stay up to date on all things silver and black, check out our shows on our own YouTube channel. You can also log on to Raiders.com.